Sorry, I apologize, folks. One little piece of business that we need to do. Lucinda, would you mind reading the notice of electronic meeting, please?
Yes.
My apologies, guys.
Thanks. And we are recording. Okay. So the governor has declared a state of emergency due to the COVID-19 pandemic, and the nature of this declared emergency makes it impractical or unsafe for the Central Virginia Regional Housing Partnership to assemble in a single location. This meeting will be held utilizing electronic virtual communication with the Zoom software application and in accordance with virtual meeting procedures and policies as outlined in item 4.0-01 of the Virginia State Budget HB 29 as effective April 24th, 2020. The meeting will be recorded and made available to the public at www.tjpdc.org.
Thank you, Lucinda. So we'll get back on track to public comments. Anybody who wishes to make public comments, would you do me the favor, use your raise your hand feature and we'll call you as they come in. Any public comments, please? Love to hear from you, please. Anybody have the hand up, Gretchen, or? Oh, Neil's got his hand up. Neil, it's all yours, sir.
Did you hear me? Thank you. Neil Williamson with the Free Enterprise Forum. I must say I have not been attending these meetings on a regular basis, but I'm encouraged by the existence of this group and the talented people on it. I'm very concerned right now on a regional basis that there is a clear misunderstanding of affordable housing and what it is and who it serves. And in looking at how to fix that, I think that this group is well positioned to have the kind of discussions and perhaps PR campaign to talk about the people that make the difference and who is being helped by this. Right now we have a situation where it's being demonized. Affordable housing is being demonized, density is being demonized, and it's restricting the development of market rate housing as well as affordable housing. That's not good for anyone on this call. I think it's a great opportunity for this group to work together to change the concept of what affordable housing looks like. If you're talking about the 10-year fantasy behind Greg's head, which is gorgeous, or simply townhouses that are skinnier in front, what is affordable housing and who does it serve? I think the regional body is the right body to have that discussion and to put it in the public specter. Thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. Appreciate it. I took some notes and I can assure you that's kind of the intent of this body. So thank you for participating and thank you for your comments. Anybody else wish to make public comments? If so, either virtually or physically raise your hand. Gretchen or Christine, do we see if anybody raising their hands? I only can see part of the folks in attendance. Okay. So going once, going twice, no other public comments. Gretchen, it looks like we got a couple more folks coming in. Did we get enough for a quorum so we can go back up to the consent agenda? We do. Okay, great. So I'm going to move back up to item number 3 for the consent agenda. Everybody had a handout, had an opportunity to read it from our December 9th, 2020 meeting. Any edits, comments, or adjustments in that? And if none, I would be entertaining a motion. A motion to accept, please.
I will move their acceptance.
Second, Jesse Rutherford.
Thank you, Jesse, for the second. Who was the first?
Lloyd Snook.
Thank you, Lloyd. Lloyd was the initial on that. All in favor, do me a favor. Let's either say aye or raise your hands, please.
Aye.
Well, I'm going to assume everybody's accepted that because I only can see half of you. All righty. So the next thing on our agenda is the events committee update. I do not see in my list of folks Stacy Pepia. Is Dr. Stacy Pepe. Oh, there you are. You just popped
I'm
up to
here.
the side.
Yes, I was, my camera was off. So we had our first session for the spring speaker series last week. It went really well. The topic was zoning hurdles and affordable housing. We had 3 panelists. One was Chris Henry. Chris, I couldn't remember your name and I'm looking right at you, sorry. Chris Henry was on the panel. He also sponsored the event. Thank you very much, Chris. Charlie Armstrong, and we had Andrew, whose last name I can never remember, from the Virginia Home Builders Association. There were 93 people registered for the event. 65 of them were able to attend. And we had 7 of the attendees return the survey that we sent out after each session. They all did indicate that they enjoyed the session and it helped increase their knowledge. So it went really well. Next month, we have William Park from Pinnacle Construction. He is going to talk about sort of a really broad overview of an affordable housing pro forma. So what developers need to think about when they build affordable housing. I don't have the exact details on his presentation yet. He's going to get that to me by the end of this week or early next week, but he is ready to go. The month after that, we'll be talking about transportation and its connection to affordable housing, and we will wrap it up in June with Siri Russell from the county's Office of Equity and Inclusion to talk about housing.
You finished, Stacy?
I am finished, yes.
Thank you. Later on in the agenda, the question that everybody hopefully will start chatting about is, what do you feel is the value proposition, or what other value propositions of the Regional Housing Partnership? And I can speak from my personal opinion. This series is a huge value proposition. The gentleman, Andrew's last name is Clark, and I actually had a phone call with him after it, and he was just stunned that we had over 50, 60 people engaged in it and stayed through the whole time. He said to me jokingly, normally there's only like 5 people. This was awesome, and was excited about potentially being invited back for another topic. So, we got in front of 60 some odd people, told our story, talked about it, and I think people walked away from that a whole bunch smarter than, at least I think, than when they started. So this is a great thing. Thank you to Stacy and her team. They're doing a great job. And the next one's about numbers. So numbers can be a little boring and dry. We're going to try to spice it up a little bit, but we'll have a lot of fun and get some good information out. Before we move down the agenda, does anybody have any comments or thoughts on that topic, or to ask Stacy or any of the staff? Okay.
Actually, one thing I would just like to say, I got an email today. I was very glad to see that the presentation was taped and that I will be able to review it later, because although I had hoped to be there during the meeting, I could not be, but I'll do what I often do with these things and look at them at 2 o'clock in the morning.
Well, thank you, Lloyd, for doing that. If you have any questions, please reach out to staff members or myself. We'll help you out any way that we can. I think everybody needs a little bit of coffee. Let's kind of get a little jazzed up, guys, or I'll have a little bit more. Maybe that's what's needed here. So I think that covers the event committee update, unless somebody else has any comments or thoughts on that. No? Okay, great. Thank you. Number 5 on our agenda, the Housing Resource Locator Update. Christine Jacobs, that is your topic.
All right, can you hear me? Great, I'm going to share my screen. Can you all see the Porchlight VA website? Excellent. Okay, so I'm going to give you guys a quick overview on some of the back-end data that we've begun to receive on Porchlight. As you guys know, this was an initiative in the fall that we kicked off, an affordable housing locator with a footprint of the entire region. It also incorporated a link to a page that has affordable housing resources collated by locality and state and federal. And so what we did is now I'm going to switch screens, excuse the fumble real quick, just so I can show you this. And I pulled this just this morning. So this is our most up-to-date statistics. I apologize for not sending it out in advance, but I did want to get as much data as I could. So I've been working on that. So this shows the analytics. So how often a search is being completed on Porchlight VA. And so you can see that to date, we've had a total of 13,865 searches. So that's the far right-hand column. In the past year, that's how often this website has been used. This calendar year, which is, I think, a better gauge for us since we've only been managing this for a couple of months, is the 2021 to date. So that's going to be January 1 through present. And the website has been used 3,412 times. So folks have accessed it and conducted a search, is what that tells us. You can see searches by county, by the day. I think there are some limitations on our back end analytics that I've reached out to Emphasis, who is our developer for this website. If we want to look, for example, at folks who did a search with specific criteria, whether or not they were able to find a unit that met their criteria, right now, the only way to access that data is to look on a calendar by day. There is no way for me to pull a report of what are all of the missed searches in the region so that we can begin to see what types of units are being requested and what types of units are not available. And so I'm continuing to work with Emphasis to see if there's another way for them to be able to provide that data in a more comprehensive way. We also have set up on, since the resources are, the resource page is actually a web page that we manage rather than Emphasis, the developer. We have also set up Google Tag Manager so that we can begin to collect analytics on what is it that people are using on this resource page. Which organizations are they clicking on, sending them to external sites, so that we can also begin to see how the public is using this and whether there are ways that we can improve it. We certainly do have a plan to change the graphics and to update this page. However, we want to collect some baseline data first before putting too many additional of our limited resources into this page. So that's my high-end Porchlight, but I'm happy to also, I'm going to stop the share real quick. I'm happy to take any questions that anybody has on how that website is performing.
And we're still working through the for sale component, correct? Any thoughts or comments for Christine or her team on this? Again, I'm going to put that in. Go ahead.
Sorry, thanks, Keith. Thank you for the update, Christine. That's still awesome. That's another selling point, I think, for this group is that website. Absolutely. It's pretty awesome. And I hope it continues to get the support and use. And that was one of my questions, was about landlords using it. I know it's still new, but are there any metrics or analytics around clues around their experience with it so far?
Yes, I can. The back-end data right now for the listing side rather than the search side shows the total number of landlords, the total number of units, and then the total number that are available. But it doesn't show you how that's changing over time. It's showing it as a point in time metric. So it's really difficult to see if we're gaining or losing, how that's going. So it's another thing that I would love to go back to Emphasis with and say, here's some feedback. Are there better ways that we can get the data that we want to show whether we're getting more and more landlords over time listing their units on the site?
Got it. Thanks.
Thank you, Anthony. You kind of took my comment. This is another example of a success of the Regional Housing Partnership. Any other comments or thoughts for Christine?
Diantha does. I think I do. Christine, can you just help me with, if you had your druthers, is there something that you think should be done to help market this website? Because I have sent it to a couple of folks who weren't aware of it, and I understand that. I mean, not everybody can know about it, but I'm just thinking about marketing it in the community. And my other question is around, I understand that it is a snapshot. Are there any glitches? Are there any problems with keeping it updated? I guess is what I'm asking, and how that's going. So just a couple of random thoughts.
No, great questions. The first one around marketing, I will say that will come up during our budget conversation, because the resources needed to keep this out in front and to do some pretty robust outreach to property owners and landlords is really what I think our next drive needs to be, is to make sure there are units that are in there when people are using it. So I couldn't agree with you more that there is still a swath of our population that does not know that this exists. And I think we really need to be mindful about putting the resources into it so that it stays front of mind, and that people are seeing it everywhere they go, and Porchlight becomes, you know, a pretty common name in the community for where you go to look for affordable housing. To your second question, glitches, remind me what the second half was?
Well, I was just asking about the ease that we're finding that it can be updated and kept current. Because that's going to be that's what's critical, really.
Absolutely. Part of our annual service fee with the developer emphasis is they do monitor those listings. So they look for inactive listings or listings that haven't been amended or revised over time. And they track that information and will reach out to property owners or lenders if their units look as though they've become static, like they're not being updated. So they actually do a bit of that management for us as part of the fees that we pay to them.
Okay, but staleness is not good.
Say that again?
People go, I said staleness is not good, right?
Absolutely, especially in this incredibly fast moving market that we're in. Mm-hmm.
And there would be a tendency you go once, and if you find it stale, you don't go back. Right, that's just human nature.
Understood, yep.
Right, thanks.
Certainly.
Thank you, Diantha. Anybody else would like to chime in with their thoughts on this?
I have another one if that's okay. Sorry to hog this.
No. I offered it out.
The ability to, well, there's some conversations in the community about trying to get some more resources for housing navigation in particular, right? Supports. And I guess I'm just wondering if there would be in the future potential for someone in that kind of role to update the website on behalf of landlords, or do you have to be like a property owner yourself to list your own units? And I know that you probably don't have that answer, but I
don't know it definitively, but I do know that anyone can request to list units. And so we would just have to make sure that there's nothing within the contract that you can't list on behalf of someone else. I can certainly look into that. That seems like an easy answer for us to find.
Okay. And that may not be the right path for us to go down, but it may be, you know, kind of relation to Diantha's concerns about it being used frequently enough and updated. It's something I think we should keep in mind, is that we may need someone to like do that as a part of their position, is like make sure that it's up to date, that units in the community are actually being, you know, listed on the website properly and whatnot.
I think what you're talking about is integrity of the data a little bit, and that's the second part of the importance of this website. It's important to make the connection, but it's also important for the integrity of the data. Somebody who deals with an MLS on a regular basis, you know, that's used to, Diantha, and I apologize, Diantha, you're the first one next to me here virtually, as an elected official could use that information to help her form a decision or not, one way or the other. So that's an important point to make on this. Again, another great reason why the RHP is so important.
I'm sorry, I'm going to apologize again, like Anthony, for jumping in twice, but let me just ask.
You only get 3, Diantha, so that's 2 out.
I'm drinking my coffee. It's your problem because you told me to go get a cup.
Sorry about that. Apologize.
This may be more of a question for Colette, but as the largest employer, I got her attention. As the largest employer in our region, is this website something that the university would be sharing with new hires? I'm just thinking about, because you have lots of people, Colette, that are looking for places that they can afford, right? And I'm just wondering how it plays out with, you know, the big kahuna in our community, which is the university.
Yeah, that's a good question. I guess I can explore that a little bit on whether or not kind of resources we offer. You know, it's been a long time since I was a new employee at the university. But I can see, I know we do have orientation sessions for employees, so I can check into that and see what we supply in terms of community resources available to employees.
Yeah, and I would say the same thing for us in Albemarle County, that we should be perhaps utilizing it as well. But you just have the lion's share of the employees. So,
right.
But it's something that Stacy and I can talk about, and we can figure that out on our end. But anyway, thank you.
Sure.
Once again, one of the great things about this body is that two-way conversation that just happened. So thank you, folks, for doing that. Anybody else before we move down the agenda? We're kind of catching up on time here. Any further thoughts for Christine before she moves into the next topic? All right, Christine, I think you are up next. The housing plan, the regional housing plan.
And if I may, Anthony, since you're here, would you like to say anything as the chair of that committee to start this off, and then I can pick up after that? I want to offer you that opportunity.
Thank you, Christine. And no, I will, I don't know, abdicate. That's probably not the right word, but in some ways that might be true to you for the latest update. So, but thank you for the opportunity. I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so the regional housing plan, we are making a great deal of progress. So where we are high level, let me make sure everybody on the call remembers what this plan is or gets their first introduction to this plan. We are creating a draft comprehensive plan chapter for each of the jurisdictions within the Planning District Commission: City of Charlottesville, Albemarle, Fluvanna, Greene, Louisa, and Nelson. So it will have a chapter for each jurisdiction, as well as a regional chapter that then creates strategies for the region to address the housing needs within Region 10. So where we are in our process is we now have a draft of all 6 of the locality chapters. We have been working directly with staff specifically in Albemarle and Charlottesville, since they have been doing so much work on their end with their affordable housing plans. We're working with them directly to put the work that they've done into the template that we have. We now are going to be moving into drafting the regional chapter. I would love to show you guys a quick snapshot of what one of them might look like, with the caveat that this is very much in draft format and is not yet ready for release. It hasn't gone through our committees entirely. It still needs to go to the executive committee through the partnership. So I'm going to just show you guys a little bit of what it'll look like, each chapter for each county. We'll do some background on how to use the plan. We'll give some updates on what the county looks like as far as its situations and its opportunities, and then what type of engagement that we were able to do. We'll then go into some demographic background. We'll give some key statistics on each of the jurisdictions. We will do an analysis of housing plus transportation costs, as well as looking at their current land use and zoning. Some of these, we already know the work that the localities are doing. There's going to need to be updates. This is obviously, every jurisdiction is in a different place with updating their plans. So we will also have, when this is released, a zoning map, as well as where multifamily zoning is permitted in each of the jurisdictions. And then we'll move into what is the gap as it was reported in the regional housing study that showed that there were unit gaps for folks not being able to afford units they were currently in, or to rent or buy units that they were looking to. And we will then have each chapter a series of recommendations. Sorry for the fast scroll, that was my mouse. And again, this is very much in draft. We're looking at changing possibly what information we give in this matrix, but we will then give recommendations based on where in the housing spectrum it occurs. So with unhoused, and then we'll go into affordable rental recommendations, market rate, affordable homeownership, market rate rental, and then market rate ownership. And we're doing that for each of the counties and the city. As soon as we are completed with this matrix, we're then drafting the regional, and the regional chapter, I'm gonna, okay, good. Can you guys see my screen as I just went through all of that? Oh, for Pete's sake, I am so sorry. I just scrolled through that entire thing so you guys can see it, and you didn't see it.
But it was so dynamic, Christine.
If you will forgive me, if it's okay, I'm gonna back up a couple steps, and I apologize that you weren't seeing that. It actually, the visual made a lot more sense than all that talking that I was just doing. So I'm gonna do a really quick, at least show you the visual. If that's okay with everybody, please forgive me.
Christine, I need to interrupt you for one moment, please, if you don't mind. Yeah. Lucinda, would you mind emailing me? I've got a couple people texting me trying to get in and they can't. If you can,
no.
It's okay. If you could please email me that link and I'll forward this to these folks. I apologize, Christine. I just wanted to make sure these folks have an opportunity to join us.
No worries at all. All right, I'm gonna go through that again. I do apologize again. Here we go. I'm gonna just briefly go through a set of slides. I've already explained to you what some of these are. This is kind of like a draft of one of the chapters: demographic statistics, housing and transportation costs, land use as it is in their current land use plan. Zoning maps will be included where multifamily dense is allowed. Analysis of that. Here we go. Then it identifies the gap for the study that was done in the region. So it'll show the gap in units based on the data that was in that study. And then we organize the strategies based on where in the housing spectrum, from unhoused all the way up into market rate housing. So you'll see once we get into the recommendations, and this is where I was pointing when you couldn't see, we will be changing this. So please recognize that this is in draft format. We're going to change what type of information is presented in this matrix, but then it'll go through and give recommendations along each part of the housing continuum based on the feedback that we got, based on best practices, and based on some of the gaps that are existing in the jurisdictions. My goodness. Better?
It's pretty though, isn't it?
And there's one of those for each chapter. So you'll see each county has its own color coded, and we're still working through that. I'm gonna stop that share. And I'm happy to take questions on the plan. Oh, another thing I can share with you guys, just because I threw this together last minute, but I'm happy to share, because I'm sure a question could come up on this, is the time frame for its completion. We're edging very close to that. Can you guys see the PowerPoint screen in front of me this time? Thank you. All right, so if I put that in presentation mode, it'll be full screen. There we go. So March, our goal was to complete a draft of all of the individual county chapters. April is when we're going to be drafting the regional chapter with regional strategies. May will bring the completed draft to the Regional Housing Partnerships Executive Committee for their review. In June, we'll bring that to the full CVRHP, this full voting body, for recommendation to the TJPDC Commission. We will go June through August and present our recommended plans to the localities. And then in August, bring it before the TJPDC Commission for their consideration for their approval. So that is high level, the tentative schedule. As we all know, we're going to do our best to stick to that schedule, but it has been a complex process. And I will say, I'm going to stop sharing. I know I keep bouncing around. I will say every time we talk about the housing plan, I want to make sure to give kudos to the committee that's working on it. The Strategies and Analysis Committee has been exceptional and gracious in giving us of their time and their expertise. We always welcome other people on that committee, but I want to thank them for the time because they've been meeting with us every 3 to 4 weeks and battling through each of the chapters and all of the strategies and background data. So I appreciate all the work that they've done to support us in drafting this.
Thank you.
All right, does
Christine.
anybody have any questions?
It looks like Greg has his hand up.
Christine, this is fabulous work, by the way. Can you speak to the interface between the committee and each of the jurisdictions in terms of input and feedback? How is that working?
As far as what was scoped for this is a really good question. I think something we need to talk through. What was scoped for this plan was to have 2 stakeholder meetings in each jurisdiction, 1 public meeting in each jurisdiction. And so the original stakeholder meeting at the beginning was to get some of their, what are the concerns, what are the opportunities, what does a healthy housing system look like, feedback. And then we're going to bring it back to them and present it as our draft. However, it really then at that point becomes a document of those localities, at least those individual chapters, to then say, what are they going to do with it? Is it something they'd like to adopt into their comprehensive plan? Is it something they want to use to pull strategies out of? And I believe one of our high recommendations in that regional chapter is going to talk a lot about the amount of community engagement and the amount of stakeholder engagement that will need to occur at that jurisdiction level. Unfortunately, with the grant that we have, there was no way near the resources to do that robust of a community engagement process in all 6 of the localities. Does that answer your question, Greg?
In part, specific to the city who has their own draft, how much interaction and how well their draft, part of their comprehensive plan that's been done by the consulting team and staff in the city, how will that incorporate itself into the overall regional plan, which I think is important. It's a regional problem.
Excellent. I can speak to that. We're working directly with their staff in the city, and the strategies that are going to be in the city chapter in the regional plan come directly from the work from the city. So they are going to be the same strategies. That makes sense. So basically we're taking their very large plan and condensing it into our chapter so that they are a part of this entire regional plan. Same is occurring with the county. We're working directly with staff in the county to do the same thing. County of Albemarle, excuse me.
Thank you. Excellent.
It looks like Diantha has a finger up, I think.
This is really outstanding, and I'm excited about this work, and it's very timely. So thank you very much. I'm curious, again, this deals with the university, and maybe it's too early to even figure this out, but I know, and this is specific, I think, to the county and the city, but the university has made a commitment to affordable housing for employees. And I'm not real sure exactly where that commitment stands or what the work is on it. And it's in the future, I thought. And Colette's shaking her head no, so she's saying no. I thought there was.
That's not exactly correct, Diantha.
Okay, correct me.
The university made a commitment to a 10-year plan to provide between 1,000 and 1,500 affordable housing units. Do not restrict them and do not intend to restrict them to employees.
Oh, actually, okay. That's interesting. And this is helpful for me because we've heard discussion and then I just wasn't sure. So where is that? It's a 10-year plan.
Mm-hmm.
And do you have any idea of when you're going to be rolling that out or talking more about it? Or because obviously case.
Diantha, if you wouldn't mind allowing me to chime in on this, if you don't
Oh,
mind.
okay,
please.
absolutely. I'd just like to know more.
No, I understand that. I think this is a perfect roundtable discussion topic. I'm sure Colette is probably going to talk a little bit about that about what UVA is doing. Is that correct, Colette? Is that you were intending to talk
I
about?
can.
Yeah.
I can
So-
update everybody.
Yeah, just to keep our agenda a little bit on track, if you don't mind, Diantha, we'll kind of catch that on the back end at the roundtable. Are you okay with
And I
that?
think, yeah, the only thing I'm going to say is I think this might connect for at least some of us with the work Christine's doing. But
Okay.
leave that in. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, we'll tie. I think we'll tie that together at the roundtable, if you don't mind. So, any other comments before? Because I'm trying to get us back on track here time wise.
Just real quick, Keith, if you don't
Sure.
mind. So thank you, Christine, for that update, and also shout out to the committee participants who really gave really excellent feedback to help create these plans. I just wanted to put it out there that, I realize that I might be signing myself up somehow for work, but I think it would be great once this full regional plan is created for there to be a maybe subcommittee of this group to just kind of digest it and see how we can continue to support its actuation in the communities, because this is a really important step, but it's obviously just the beginning in a lot of ways. So yeah, just wanted to throw that out there.
Thank you, Anthony. So I think we're kind of back on track here, guys, on time wise. So thank you, Christine, for picking up a little bit of time for us here. So the next subject we have is the fun subject of money and the budget. So Christine and I are going to tackle it. I believe somewhere on the call is Ned. So Ned, if you wish to chime in, please do that. I'm going to kind of simplify the conversation real quick so we can try to get to a little bit more time on the back end of the agenda. In your package, there's two budgets. There's the remaining balance of this calendar year or this fiscal year, which will end in June. And the bottom line on that is we're healthy. We have enough capital to get the projects done that we have outlined up to that point. What you're looking at also is the 2022 budget. And the only thing that we know we have right now, and I believe Chip announced this, I know at the executive committee meetings, I'm not so sure at the last regional meeting, that the commission, the Planning District Commission, is allocated $25,000 towards this body. It wasn't supposed to do that this year, but it decided to do it to help kickstart the 2022 budget. So what you're looking at is if we don't receive any other money, that's about the extent of what we can accomplish. We've determined at the executive committee level, and any executive committee members, please jump in if I'm wrong. We probably need about another 50 grand, something like that. We're going to need a budget somewhere around $75,000 just to try to tackle some of the things we're going to talk about at the strategic plan discussion next. Ned and I had a couple of meetings. We're trying to figure out a way to generate a fair and equitable payment plan or a way that folks can contribute to it. That being said, if there's any entities on this call that feel the need to make a contribution to this budget for 2022, we would surely accept it and say thank you. But you're going to start seeing long before the budget ends a reach out from us and saying organization A, this is what we're looking for, B, C, and D down the road. But Ned and I haven't quite figured out a fair and equitable way to do that yet. So Christine, did I miss anything at a high level? Okay. So I don't really want to spend a bunch of time digging into the budget things, but based on what my comments I made, does anybody have anything they'd like to chime in on the budgets? Other than sliding a nice big old check across the table? No? Okay, guys. Well, thank you on that. I mean, if you have any specific questions on the budget, please reach out to somebody on the executive team or myself or staff, and we will help do that. But we're trying to figure out a fair and equitable way to raise the capital to do that. So number 8, strategic plan and value proposition. This was a genesis from the last, this agenda item was a genesis from the last executive committee meeting, and I thought it went well, and I decided this would be a great conversation to have. There is no formal presentation or formal presentation in this, but what I wanted to do is ask this question is, what do you feel is the value proposition of the regional housing partnership? And I think this conversation will help formulate how we move forward. We also probably have to have a little conversation about, do we really need to start taking a harder look or relook at the strategic plan and maybe formalize that a little bit more than what we have done? It was kind of loosely put together originally on that end of it. So we want to kind of talk about, is there value in doing that? And I think Christine can share some, reach out to Spark Mill and other entities to formally do that. So I'm going to let Christine talk about that for a minute. And then I'm just going to open the floor to anybody who wants to jump in on the value proposition. In my world, it'd be called, give me your elevator speech, right? If I'm stuck in an elevator with Lloyd, how am I, and I got 30 seconds, sorry, Lloyd, to pick on you, is, you know, what is my sales pitch going to be, my value proposition, so Lloyd can write me that check. So that's something to be thinking about as Christine talks a little bit on the strategic plan.
I am going to attempt sharing my screen again. Are you all able to see my screen? Excellent, thank you. Here we go. Okay, so the current strategic plan that we have, and again, I think we're loosely using strategic. Can you all see the, okay, good. It was really like strategic priorities that were identified. So remember back in 2019, we had a consultant come in and do a strategic planning retreat with the partnership. And in that retreat is where we identified strategies that we wanted to try to address as a body, looking at what the competitive advantage of a regional body was. And so the following slides are just going to update us on what was in that plan and what the progress in those strategies is to date. So in the first, the very first one, it was to develop a plan for education, outreach, community engagement to support the development of a regional housing plan, basically. So we've completed the first one, which is going out to the stakeholder meetings and citizen community to get feedback on what was needed in each jurisdiction. Another strategy was to hold an annual regional housing summit. Obviously with the pandemic that went virtual, but we have been able to continue each 6 months to offer a different series. So that is ongoing, and our goal is to continue doing that through the upcoming fiscal year. We have reached out to date. We have been asking for sponsorships to cover that. We recently, staff submitted a grant application to see if we could get that paid for in advance so we can secure funding to continue that into fall of 22. Creating a regional website was one of our goals. That the development of that is complete. The ongoing maintenance of that will occur. So we've made good progress on that goal. The next one is to create a holistic regional housing plan. That is the plan draft that I shared with you. We're a little behind on timeline, but I think we're making really good progress, and it's going to be a really good product. So the first one was to develop the plan for listening to residents. That's ongoing. To review zoning codes, comp plans, key policy documents in each of the localities to make sure we're looking at what they've already done and what they're in the process of doing. That is complete. And then working with staff to identify barriers that exist so that we can incorporate those into the plan. That is ongoing as a part of the drafting of those chapters. This is where we get into the strategic priorities that we now need to determine. Are these still the appropriate ones moving into fall of 22? And how will we accomplish them? Basically, how will we fund them? So developing metrics to evaluate progress on the strategies. So this one was all about, once we have a plan and we have a series of strategies that we're recommending, how do we know if they're being implemented and if they're working? Are they closing the gap that we've been talking about? So this would be going into fall of 22, developing those metrics and a dashboard to be able to report out on either individually by county or county and city, excuse me, or as an entire region, are we closing that gap? So that's still work that needs to be completed. And the next one is create a consolidated policy platform for legislators. So this was talking all about housing legislation and whether or not we can come together as a region to support legislation or to prevent legislation, I suppose. And so these were the 4 activities that we wanted to complete that came around to this. I do think that possibly we can say pandemic related, that didn't occur for 2020, but yeah, maybe. But I also think it's just there was so much going on this past year that we were accomplishing and completing that didn't rise to the top. I think we're pretty well primed to do that work moving into FY22. And then, so those are the 4. And then a conversation we had at the executive committee meeting, and Keith, stop me if this is something that you were going to talk about. But a conversation that we had is it's probably the right time to consider a full-blown strategic planning process, really engage the community, engage all of our stakeholders, and identify what it is that this body could and should be doing moving forward to move the needle. And so we're looking into a Virginia housing grant to do strategic planning. And I've reached out to some consultants to get some preliminary price points of what it might cost to do that, so that I can make sure that we can cover that with that grant, because that's also a part of the budgeting conversation, is making sure we have the funding that we need to move this body into the next steps of what they can be accomplishing. I'm going to stop sharing my screen so that we can then talk. If anybody has questions, or Keith, if you want to add anything to that, please.
No, you picked up where I was hoping to go with this conversation. From my perspective, I think it's time for us to do a full-blown strategic plan. It could potentially help answer the questions Mr. Williams brought up. It could look at me when I mentioned his name. It could answer that question. It could help us formulate this question that I get asked all the time. Please define affordable housing, right? What does that mean to us? What does that mean to me? It means different things to different folks. So personally, I think this is a much needed thing, a much needed tool. And the way that they do this, it'll engage all the stakeholders that are on this call to formulate this strategic plan. So at the end of the day, we need the capital to do it. I think and maybe Christine can double check me on this, but it's probably going to be somewhere in the $25,000 range, plus or minus a few $1,000s. We clearly don't have that money in the budget for next year, so we're either going to have to look out for some grants or some way to get folks to help us participate in it. So I guess it's the 2 parts of this question is what the value proposition is of the Regional Housing Partnership. And the reason that's important, it helps the executive team and staff to try to formulate future discussions and path. And I guess the second part of that is there a value to pursue a full strategic plan? And Christine, how long did they say that would take? You may have mentioned it and I missed it.
I'm sorry, how long, what would take, Keith?
The strategic plan, excuse me, the full strategic plan.
I want to say it was an 8. I've only gotten feedback from one consultant.
Sure,
I think theirs was an 8-month process.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Yeah, so it'll be a substantially. It'll fill up most of the next calendar or fiscal year in that. So there's not any formal calling. Whoever wishes to jump in and tackle this value proposition question or the strategic plan question, the floor is yours. Just jump on in. Anybody?
I'm not a partner in the partnership, but I would love to put in what I think one of the values is. I think by having a regional body that's looking at this issue comprehensively, how it relates to transit and transportation, how it relates to equity, health, I think we put ourselves in a position. So for example, to be considered to administer the emergency rent and mortgage relief program. Since we have a body that is doing this, it was seen as it is a priority in our community. And so I think it brings us other opportunities as a region. I'll start us off with that.
Anybody else? Lloyd, looks like you want to jump in. Nope. Anybody?
Greg had his
Greg
hand.
does.
Oh, okay. Sorry, Greg.
So this is a regional crisis. It affects all of us. Poverty doesn't know municipal property lines, barriers. This is the only group that I'm aware of that brings together all of us that are impacted by and can positively resolve this problem. I think there's incredible value to have the private sector interfacing with the municipalities, interfacing with the not-for-profits, interfacing with the institutions. And this has been set up to do just that. And I think we're seeing some positive initial results. And I think we need to find ways to keep moving forward and keep all of those, I believe you call them 4 legs, engaged. Pillars. I know that one of the 4 pillars, the not-for-profits, I don't see anybody from there. So we need to.
Hi, my name is Shelby. I'm with
There you are.
the
Okay.
Public Housing Association of Residents.
And
thanks, Shelby.
Thanks for having me. I'm new with FAR, so this is actually my first meeting. It's a pleasure to meet everybody.
I'm not seeing Habitat. I'm not seeing Piedmont Housing Alliance. They're actually doing lots these
And
days.
Susan Steinmark here with the Land Trust.
Oh, good. Hi, Susan.
Margaret's here with the Nelson County Community Development Foundation. We're a nonprofit. And we also represent the rural people. So
look at this. Huh?
I think the regional approach is really, really important, especially to us little guys out here on the fringe. So I'm all for this group and what we do. So
thank you, Margaret.
And Anthony's always on. I didn't mean to discount Anthony.
I'm excited to learn more about this group. I can't say I know enough to have a strong opinion either way, but I will say everybody on this call is really nice, and that I can definitely appreciate. I also want to shout out one of my staff members, Don Gathers, who's a staff member with FAR. So thank you, Don.
Yeah, I invited John Sales to join us, but he was last minute. He couldn't meet it. That was the link I was trying to send out. So and if anybody sees John Sales, it's his birthday on Saturday. So anybody else want to jump in? How about you, Jesse, from, okay, Chris. Did you want to say something, Chris?
I have something to say. I was going to defer to the people that are probably stronger thinkers than me, but we're one community, and this group represents that community and how we come together to solve that problem. So I think that's kind of the fundamental essence of the Regional Housing Partnership. And I think it's really important to keep our eye on progress, which is where the metrics come in. I think there's a lot of times plans are laid and they're not tracked, or they're not dusted off to see if they were ever achieved. So this is a group that can help essentially keep tabs on progress around the region, not just one municipality shouldering the burden as it may be. And then I think our role is to promote the positive things that are happening in the community. The nonprofits probably aren't on the call right now because they're in the middle of actually building some real affordable units between Southwood, South First Street, and Friendship Court. And that's an enormous accomplishment when we get those projects all broken ground. And then in 18-24 months, when we're moving residents in, we should be promoting that hugely. Charlottesville, I think, is moving from one of the worst performers maybe amongst our peer cities to potentially we have an opportunity, or we can see a path to maybe being an example again. And I think that's really important, and I hope we don't lose track of that.
Great perspective, Chris. And I didn't think, but you're 100% right that those folks are out there making it happen. Anybody else want to add their thoughts to this subject? There you go. Got Christopher Brement. I'm sorry, Christopher, I messed up your last name. I apologize. What would you like to share with us, sir?
Thanks, Keith. I'll jump in. This is not fancy, but
I believe that there are a lot of intangibles that the different, pillars bring. Advocating on behalf of housing affordability is not something that we only do when we're in these meetings. As a member of local home builders associations and other efforts, our efforts on behalf of the industry in general support affordable housing. So I think that that's a way to, and just one example, from my day job, that we're adding value to the efforts of this group.
Thanks, Christopher. You actually made me remember a discussion, or reminded me of a discussion that you and I had, and I wanted to table this to everybody on the call. Not that we don't want to continue the discussion of the value proposition, but this may actually roll into that conversation. Christopher and I had a conversation about what would it look like to bring in Augusta County and Waynesboro, because this crisis just doesn't impact us on this side of the hill. It does impact folks on the other side of the hill. And I know, my hats is off to Christine. She's doing a real yeoman's job picking up from when to some other jurisdiction stole our executive director, hired our executive director away from us. Excuse me, I apologize. That was a slip of the tongue.
Hey, we recognize quality when we see it.
That's right. Well done. Well done. Well done, Lloyd. So, is there value in that? Does that add value to this, to anybody on this call, that if, or the Zoom, that if we're able to pick up those discussions again, with businesses, the same four pillars on the other side of the hill, does that make us stronger? Does that make us weaker? Is that something that adds value to what we do? Or is it time yet? Do we need more time before we do that? Just a little, pardon me, a little thought to throw out there for folks to chime in on. All right, Michael, I'm going to pick on you, Mr. Payne. What do you think is the value proposition of what we do here?
I think it's pretty clear. In our affordable housing strategy, it talks about the need for a regional approach. And there's really no way we're going to be able to do what we want to do locally unless we're partnering with the other localities to think about their land use decisions, the kind of affordable housing projects they're funding, public transportation. So I think this is really one of the most valuable bodies there is on housing, because it's the only place where these localities are coming together to talk about affordable housing. Otherwise, things are just so diffuse. It's easy to get caught up in our own local business and not focus on what's going on regionally. And so, again, I think without this body and that regional approach and the work that's been done, we're really sort of not going to be able in Charlottesville even to do what we want to do.
Thank you, Michael. Diantha, anything to share from your perspective?
Well, I certainly agree with what was just said about the importance of the regional work. I'm not sure I have any pearls of wisdom to throw on the table right now, but I certainly agree with the work and the importance of this group. And are you specifically asking me about the Valley, the folks in the Valley?
Either question that you're comfortable with. If you think it's a good idea, great, or not.
Yeah, I guess I need to give that a little bit of thought. It's a surprise. It's a surprising question, but I need to give that a little thought. Certainly, we are connecting what I think of as the Valley, Waynesboro and Stanton, with transit to our community. So that's a first start, don't you think? And so I might be very open to having that discussion.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, as a practitioner of this sphere, you see the buyers. That's where they're going, on the other side of the mountain, and that was what gave me the thought that does it make any sense to bring them into our discussion, since we're in reality connected a little bit at the hip. But you mentioned something about transportation. I know you and I are pretty excited about this coming up, but if Stacy's still on, I believe it's our third series that's going to focus, a fourth, I can't remember which one, that is going to focus solely on transportation. Is that correct, Stacy?
That's correct. It'll be the third one. So that will be in May.
So I'm excited about that conversation, Diana, because I know that's important to the two of us.
Well, and you mentioned the buyers are going that way, right? And I get that. They're coming over here for the jobs.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right.
So how we solve that,
Good. Thank you, Diana. Anybody else want to chime in on the value proposition? We're kind of doing a little bit of a segue between the roundtable and the strategic plan value discussion, but in reference to our topic number 8 for the agenda, anybody else want to chime in on that? Any thoughts?
One thing I wanted to kind of note 2 things. One is that a value of doing this regional housing partnership through TJPDC also ties in with the regional transit partnership, and particularly where there are, I've always said that these days affordable housing for the Charlottesville market is in Waynesboro or in Buckingham County. It's not in Charlottesville. It's really not even in Albemarle very much. But so the broader the regional perspective, both in terms of transit, because ultimately a lot of these places, a lot of these people can, you can find more, you can make more housing affordable by making it easy and cheap to get to your job. And sometimes the best way to do that is through transit. And so that helps bring everything together. The other thing that I've been sort of thinking about is the extent to which, there's some basic principles of, for lack of a better way to characterize it, urban economics that I've been seeing the debate. Certainly Michael and I have had this debate on city council, he on one side, me on the other, of the extent to which building non-affordable units, market rate units, impacts the cost of quote affordable housing and keeps things down. I've seen glimmers of the same conversation taking place in other jurisdictions as well. And I wonder if there is some way to try to bring together folks who are knowledgeable on these kinds of issues and present that discussion sort of once and for all jurisdictions to partake in, to learn from, and to try to figure out what the right approach is. So that may be another way to sort of build the knowledge base for everybody in the area, rather than requiring counselors or supervisors or whoever, jurisdiction by jurisdiction, to have to educate themselves accordingly.
If I could just add to that, I think the philosophy in the city, I think, has definitely changed towards recognizing we need more density to make zoning changes. I think there's really only been one project since I've been on council that council hasn't approved greater density than what's allowed by right. So I definitely agree that's something that is going to need to happen regionally, because the supply side solutions, if only Charlottesville is doing supply side solutions, it's going to have a much smaller impact than regionally. So we definitely agree about the need to have that regional approach there, and just the value proposition of like Waynesboro, Augusta. I mean, I know there are a lot of employees and nurses, teachers, UVA hospital system who live in Stanton, Waynesboro, and Augusta and commute into the city. And about a year or so ago, I think there was even a partnership to get a bus line that goes from, I think, either Stanton or Waynesboro to Charlottesville. So at least here in Charlottesville, there's certainly already a lot of deep connections to those areas.
Thank you, Michael. Anybody else like to share their thoughts on this?
Keith, I'd love to add an echo to the public comment that was made by Mr. Williamson. I think one of the things that a regional body can do is personalize this and make it about the people. right? We often talk about affordable housing in terms of the number of units or the amount of density or the size of the lot, or, you know, and really it's about, you know, my grandmother staying in her house and having a ramp. It's about making sure that our neighbors who are serving our food and teaching our kids and, you know, working in our service industry can afford to live in the community that they're a part of, you know? And so I think something that we can do as a body is really that public education campaign, you know, to like really define what it is we mean when we're talking about, we're not only talking about, you know, deeply government subsidized units, right? We're talking about across the spectrum, making sure that everybody has an ability to live within a system, within a housing system that is dynamic and meets everyone's needs where they are and allows them to move within that system to the next type of unit and the next type of affordability. So I think that's something that this body definitely can do, because that is universal in all of the jurisdictions.
So thank you for jumping in on that, Christine, because the note that I wrote down to myself, and I apologize, I can't see everybody, so I don't exactly know everybody who's on this Zoom call, but as I think as Greg mentioned, you know, the description I like to use is these 4 pillars, right? But one of the pillars is the people who we serve, right? And anybody on the call from that sector, again, I can't see everybody, you know, would they like to chime in on some thoughts on this discussion? Again, I don't really know who, usually Brandon's here, but I don't know if I see him on the call or not.
I can speak to the land trust homeowners. We've actually invited several of them to speak on a locally known program, I Love Seaville, and talk about their experiences as land trust homeowners. So that's a one example of a social media platform, Facebook Live, which helps them to share their experiences going into a land trust home. And I think it was a very successful approach for others to hear about their experiences.
Thank you, Susan. But anybody who's an actual, you know, one of the members of it, I don't know who I'm seeing on the call that'd like to share on this. No? All right, guys, so we're running a little bit into our roundtable portion of the agenda. I think I want to kick it off a little bit and see if we can pick up this conversation again between Diantha and Colette. But before I do that, I wanted to say a personal thank you to Colette and share this with the rest of the team on here. Colette was kind enough to recommend that I, as the chairman of the Regional Housing Partnership, be part of what UVA is re-kicked off on affordable housing. So I sit on the Affordable Housing Community Engagement team. I don't really have too much to share from that because we've only had a couple of organizational discussions, meetings at this particular point, but we are meeting weekly. And I can share with everybody here, this body has representation at the table. Again, thank you, Colette, for arranging that. Well, actually, I'm assuming you did. Nobody's mentioned your name, but I'm assuming you had a big part of that. So if that conversation that was going on before, I apologize, I rudely interrupted it. If you wouldn't mind picking that back up to kick us off on the roundtable, that would be great.
Sure. So this is where you're clear now on what the university committed to do. And so where we are right now is we did a solicitation and we have hired a consultant to help us. Her name is Gina Merritt. She's with the, oh gosh, I always remember, New Urban Ventures or whatever. I don't remember the name of her firm. Anyway, she comes with 3 other consultants on her team. And we've had lots of different meetings with her. This is not a consultant who will build affordable housing for us. This is a consultant to guide the university through the process to get to the point where we would do an RFP to developers, to the developer community, to build affordable housing. The university recognized early on that we are not an expert in affordable housing. That is not one of our core competencies. So so we're gonna try to get it to the point where the experts can come in. And, you know, from the beginning, I think the leadership of the university has said that, you know, the contribution the university could make is likely to be land. And so that's what we're looking at. You know, what kind of properties does the university or the university foundation, because we are working this, this project in consort with the foundation. And so what could we identify that might be potentially attractive to developers? One of the next big steps is a community engagement process. And we're looking, we've got lists of people to talk to, private developers, nonprofits, elected officials, city, county, you know, representatives, residents. We have actually a very long list for Gina to talk to. And some of those sessions will be in groups and others will be one-on-one. But that's kind of where we are right now. And we'll be working through this over the coming months.
Colette, thank you for sharing. As you know, this is a huge step forward for UVA to do that. So thank you across the board for that. And as I said earlier, we have representation through my seat in this community outreach or engagement process, and we will keep it updated as we can. At the moment, it's a limited amount of information, but the good news is it started back up again. Is that fair to say, Colette?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
right. Thank you.
We are in it.
They're in it big time. I know. I think Rachel's on the call. Rachel Hobbs is sending me emails every day. She thinks I actually can read. So Diantha, since you rearranged and you're right next to Colette, is there anything that you would like to share in the roundtable discussion?
No, but I really do appreciate that update, Colette. That was great. It's nice to know where that initiative stands.
Sure.
And I appreciate it very much. And I think I'm okay. I guess everybody knows, just to update, that we're working with Stacy and our affordable housing policy. We're working through that. We have not approved it yet, but it'll be going back to our planning commission and then coming back to us. So we're in that process right now, but it's getting really close.
Thank you, Diantha. And I apologize if I shut you off a little bit before, but I knew this topic was going to come back up later on in the conversation. So my apologies if I came across a little.
No,
rough.
that's okay. We just all had the same topic in mind. It's good.
Thank you. All righty, looking across, Anthony, looks like you're next on my screen. Lucky you.
Hey, everybody. So big update is about the former Red Carpet Inn sale going through, and the next phase of that project getting work on, which is some renovations on the site, which are very much needed. And then we're hoping to start shelter operations in late April. Virginia Supportive Housing also sent off their low-income housing tax credit application, so that's officially off and away. And God willing, we'll have 80 units of permanent supportive housing in our community on that site in about 2.5, 3 years, which is really tremendous. In addition to the other affordable housing units as well by PHA. So let's see, other than that, that's been pretty overwhelming. I'm working on that project over the last couple of weeks for sure, and moving forward as the shelter operations transition into that site. I know Keith, you mentioned too that Governor Northam announced some support for a number of different projects through the Housing Trust Fund application, and Virginia Supportive Housing was a recipient of that for some of the pre-development work for permanent supportive housing. So that's going to support that project there too.
Thank you, Anthony.
So, yeah.
So I bet you didn't know when you started this job that you'd be in a development business, right?
Well, I did know that. So this has been one of my main goals actually since I took this position in 2017, was to support a new development of permanent supportive housing, because it's how you end homelessness in general, and it's how you end chronic homelessness in particular. So this does mark quite an extraordinary accomplishment. I think, for our community, and one that I'm really proud of. You know, the stories about the lack of communication on the seller's part for some of the guests living at Red Carpet Inn was not the way that we wanted that to happen, or to that news to be broken. So it's an amazing accomplishment, although it's kind of been difficult to feel like in that celebratory manner as a result. But it is really amazing progress. And while this is completely new skill development for me, which is pretty cool. So, yeah.
Well, you think this gray hair is because of age. It's not necessarily because of that.
Okay, duly noted. Thank you.
Mr. Payne, you are next to Mr. Anthony Harrow. Anything to share, sir?
Sure. Like I've shared before, the city just formally adopted its affordable housing strategy. So we're really just beginning the work of executing that strategy by hiring the positions in place. Our comprehensive plan and land use map update are underway. And that's a little ways off, but that's going to be huge when we finally update our zoning and make significant changes there. Like every locality, we're really looking at trying to figure out everything we're going to be able to take advantage of in the new stimulus bill, and seeing if we can use some of that money to support housing, eviction prevention, homelessness prevention, et cetera. And a final thing, it's a very preliminary discussion that just came up, is the potential to use perhaps the stimulus money to help fund a position to guarantee right to counsel in eviction cases. And it's been a very preliminary discussion, but ideas have come up of, is there a way that is a position that could perhaps operate more regionally outside of just Charlottesville? So that may be an opportunity going forward.
Thank you, Michael. I appreciate the input, and hats off to you. I know you're a super proponent of what we're trying to do here and promoting it. So thank you very much for everything that you do. Mr. Henry, I think you are next, sir.
Well, I guess we're on the topic of affordable housing. We have the second phase of our Dairy Central project is rounding out completion now. You would drive by and not know that because we don't have windows on the building yet, but we're going to start leasing units in May. And 15 of those are income restricted at 80% AMI. And that's a high number of units for the private sector to be delivering into this market in this environment. So we're pretty proud that those units are coming on now and working with the city on some of those agreements, and hopefully setting some examples of how inclusionary zoning, bonus density, some of these housing policies that the city's working on can be applied more broadly in other projects. And obviously it takes approving projects to have that negotiation, but come by if anybody wants to check them out before we lease them in May, June, July this year. I'd be happy to give a tour.
Hey, Chris, I have a quick question for you.
Yep.
I'm still relatively new to the housing biz, but how much is 80% AMI?
I think Stacy.
What's that?
I think Stacy can jump in and answer that question. I think she probably knows it off the top of her head.
Off the top of my head, 80% AMI is 75,100 for a family of 4.
Wow.
I don't know the other numbers off the top of my head. 4-person households, one I know.
Wow.
But let me see if I can get you a link to that, and I'll stick it in the chat. Okay.
That's so good. Yeah, I'm trying to acclimate myself with a lot, but oh my gosh, to me, that's still a lot of money.
Well, just Shelby, just to answer a little bit, it goes also by the number of household, right? So the more the household is, that the number changes, and as the lower the household, I believe the number goes lower. But Stacy will add that in there, and I believe Susan Steinmark's still on the call, and I believe on the land trust there's a link in there on what that dollar amount is, so we could get that information to you.
I think it's a helpful discussion. We won't have to define it now, but these are like workforce housing units, and that 80% AMI restriction essentially translates to $300 to $400 less per month in rent that we might otherwise be able to charge or would try to charge. That's a significant discount. That helps. It doesn't solve the problem at the low end of the income spectrum by any means. Mm-hmm. But there's other tools that that should be brought to bear, in my opinion, that can help us get there, and other programs that are out there that, a lot of these things work in tandem. It's not just one specific item that's gonna get us over the hump.
That's exciting.
Happy to talk more about it offline if you'd like.
Let's do it. I'll reach out to you. And that goes for anybody on the call. I love people.
So, so Shelby, since you jumped in, I'm gonna let you go next. Tell us a little bit about yourself and we do in a roundtable, just a quick little discussion. We're running, if you don't mind, if you can keep it a little short, we got about 10 minutes before we need to wrap up the meeting.
Okay, so short. Hey everybody, my name is Shelby. I use she, her, hers, and I'm the executive director of FAR, the Public Housing Association of Residents. I started in December. I am born and raised in Charlottesville. I received my bachelor's from Virginia Commonwealth University, and I received my master's from the University of Chicago. I worked there for a couple of years, and I recently made the decision to come back. I am most popularly known as Holly and Kendrick Edwards' daughter. My mom was on city council for quite some time. So that's typically how people know me, for better or for worse, usually for better. And that's me in a nutshell.
Thank you very much for sharing with us. By the way, Mr. Williams, I like your missing middle background. The point well taken, sir. Your nonverbal cue was spot on, sir. I think that's what we're talking about here. Well done. Mr. Snook, anything you'd like to share above what Mr. Payne has shared with us?
Well, Michael brought you up to speed on what we're doing, having having adopted the housing plan, the 170 some pages worth of stuff, of which probably, I don't know, 40 or 50 pages are specific recommendations, some of which we can implement in fairly short order, some of which are going to be much longer term propositions. Michael indicated we just in the last couple of days got the draft of the proposed land use plan from the consultants, and that's going to precipitate a bunch of arguments because it will purport to try to tell us specific areas and specific even plots of land that might be deemed to be appropriate for high intensity residential development, as an example, or areas just in terms of my own neighborhood in Greenbrier, areas of Greenbrier that would be designated specifically for the missing middle kinds of construction. And I can anticipate that there will be a lot of fuss about that. And then finally, we will get to the zoning code rewrite. That's supposed to be by the end of the year. So bottom line is, by the end of this calendar year, we could have a very different landscape for how and where we're going to put affordable housing in Charlottesville. So stay tuned.
Thank you for sharing, Lloyd. And I guess if you want to know what missing middle looks like, just look at the back of Neil's head. If he slides over that way, he'll show you a physical thing, the way it looks like. So I'm just going through my list here to make sure I don't miss anybody. Greg, you've got anything to share, sir?
Colette said something that I think is important. Land is one of the real keys. So, and the university knows this. I say that in part because I right now, as examples, I'm working with 2 outer town developers of not-for-profit housing, desperately trying to find sites. We just found a site for 120 senior affordable apartments at 60% AMI. It's exciting to see, although somewhat discouraging too, that a lot of the sites that we're looking at now are further out than just Albemarle County and the city. But affordable is demanding that. Transportation will be key. I'm also excited to see, I'm aware of at least 3 faith-based groups that are looking at affordable housing. Some of them have property, which is, again, one of the keys. But that's an encouraging trend. Those of you that have been subjected to impact, it's nice to see that some of the organizations, the religious organizations, are actually trying to make housing, affordable housing, happen, which is very encouraging.
Thank you, Greg. I think the last, unless I'm missing something, and Gretchen, please make sure, I think the last member is Margaret. If you'd like to share something, Margaret.
I think I think that we're just hanging in there. There might be a little bit of news in out there that my organization has been working with a for-profit group called Renaissance Ridge. We got part of that money that was, or we were awarded the DHCD grant that we went for. That's just part of an initial bit of money that we're looking for to get this development underway, which is going to be part of Wintergreen's property. It's kind of a big deal here. There could be as many as 150 units, 60 of which would be workforce housing under 80% AMI. And it's, like I said, we're in the very beginning stages of it. It's not even really known to everybody yet. But there has been some press coverage about that grant. So we'll see if it happens. We still have a lot of money to raise, but maybe something along, that inclusive workforce housing is going to happen in Nelson County to help support, home ownership here in the county. So that's all I have.
Thank you, Margaret, for sharing. And I've been tracking that. That seems like an exciting project, and we'll hopefully keep everybody up to speed on the progress on that. I know, is Jesse still on this? I knew Jesse was somewhere in there. Jesse, would you like to share something? Or is he taking a nap? Mr. Rutherford. Going once, Mr. Rutherford. Going twice. Tell you what, while we're waiting for Mr. Rutherford to chime in, Ned, I think you're on the phone. Would you like to share something? Maybe not, Ned. Try that one more time, Ned. See if we got you.
Can you hear me?
Got you now, Ned.
Sorry about that. I'm driving, so I apologize for if there's background noise. To build on Greg's point about the value proposition for this partnership, especially for those who are in elected positions. As in Albemarle, we're getting ready to approve a housing policy. One of the upsides of this partnership is to be able to hear and have interactions with everybody from the other sectors as we make important decisions like that. And if anyone by chance was following along to our conversation at our last board meeting, we had the housing policy, which needs to go back to our planning commission and then come back to the board as a comp plan amendment. But also that evening was a RIO 29 form-based code conversation. And it got deferred basically with the decision that whatever passes in the housing policy relative to 20% requirement for affordable units at 80%, and then for rentals, it's 20% at 60% AMI. And when it goes back to the Planning Commission, I made the comment that we have an opportunity to really dive into this conversation and hear from folks about is putting in the 80% requirement at 60% AMI for rental units one that is too restrictive. I know what affordable housing advocates have to say about it. Some developers had reached out suggesting it was not something that was going to pencil well, and it's a conversation that needs to happen. And all of the types and the mixes of people that are in this partnership are the exact folks that we need to hear from when we're diving into this and wrestling with this kind of topic. So I kind of throw it out there, knowing it's going back to our planning commission, and ultimately be back to our board. It's a big decision for our housing policy, and then it will have impacts on that RIO 29 small area plan. But here's an opportunity for developers who maybe don't have a stake in the game, for nonprofits, for other jurisdictions, for the public to tell us, is this the policy that we think should be working? Do those who, when they talk about projects being able to pencil out and work, will they? What are their opinions on that? So that we can arrive and be as informed as we can, so that when we vote to put that policy in place, it will be one that will have had regional input on it. And I think that's a huge value. I've learned a lot from different people that have been in this partnership, and throw that out there with the intent to help us learn more. And I can't imagine Supervisor McKeel would feel any differently. and would welcome all of the input, as I know the rest of our board would. So for what it's worth, I throw that out there. Thank you, Keith.
You're welcome, then. And it looks like in the feed, Mr. Rutherford has a piece of track equipment of something stuck in the mud. So we'll wish him nothing but the best of luck in the mud. That's the other reason, Anthony, I have gray hair. Look, guys, we're a little over. Mr. Smith is going to get his first COVID shot in the next 5 minutes, so I'm going to have to jump off pretty soon. One little comment on that. If anybody on this call is struggling trying to find a place to get a shot, the Jefferson Pharmacy has shots available. I signed on yesterday evening at 4 o'clock and got a slot for today at 4 o'clock or at 3:40, whatever time it is. So if anybody over here needs some help with that, text me or email me or send me a DM. I'll give you a link for it. But it's I was on a car. I was part of a car Charlottesville Association board meeting this morning and said the same thing. And I handed it out to a half a dozen of my board members, and they're all getting shots tomorrow. So there are shots available. You just kind of have to sneak around and find them. So if you haven't got one in your arm, go get one. Thanks, guys. Christine, can you stay on for 1 minute, please? Mr. Payne, if you wouldn't mind, I can chat with Christine for a second. Thank you.
Oh, sorry. I missed that.
No worries.
Let me.
Well, you can join us if you want. I mean.
No, I'll leave you to it. Thank you.
We could give you a harder time about stealing our gun. You want some more of that stuff?
We
Yeah,
certainly need more.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.
We went well, guys. Did it go good? Christine?
Do you still want me on, Keith?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, I think that one good.
Yeah, so I had to text Susan and we're gonna do a little better with this the next time, and I'll be a little better with this. And my problem is without seeing the faces and some names, like I've got to cross-reference who's on the committee, who's not on the committee, and I may have called somebody who wasn't, but it's a chairman's prerogative to do that. But I'm gonna have a little sit down with her. She needs not to be doing that. So this is becoming a habit. So I will, during public comments is one thing, but so other than that, anything, I know you're smiling, Christine, anything else we can do on better or quick thoughts or anything like that? No.
No, I think it went fine.
Good. I'm gonna go get a shot. See you later.
Did you want to talk land trust or not now?
I gotta be in the pharmacy in 5 minutes.
All right.
Let
me know so I can put it on my schedule. My gaps are getting smaller on my calendar.
They're non-existent.
Yeah, so let me know.
I understand. I'll just call you at 5:30 in the morning. How's that sound?
I'm in a meeting from 4 to 6.
In the morning.
Oh, in the morning? Oh, I'm not answering you. I'm getting my kids packed lunches and ready for school. All that jazz is in the morning.
Lucinda, would you jump off for a second?
Oh,
Thanks.
yeah.
Thanks for your help.
Yeah.
Thanks, Lucinda.
Oh, wait.
You're gonna have to make Christine.
It says I'm gonna end it. I'm gonna make Christine the host if I can. There. Okay.
Thank you, Lucinda.
All righty. 30-second version. We looks like we're about ready to do this deal with PH. It looks like it's going to happen May 1. I've kind of got this thing the way I wanted it to. It's going to be a 12-month dating period. We're not going to dissolve the PH. We're going to set up some metrics in it. But what's ultimately going to happen is Susan is going to get moved over as an employee. So the bottom line is we're going to just have to terminate this contract. I don't know the process in that way. I probably have to sit down and figure that out.
Contract just says 30 days written notice. That's all it says.
I can't remember it. So Great. So what I will do is I will ask Susan. So when is our billing cycle?
We bill between the 20th and the 30th of the month for the previous month. So if you let us know at the end of March, you will be billed through April, and that's it.
Okay, Roger. I will take care of it. You're good with that?
Yeah, I mean, it's great for the land trust. It's what I wanted to see happen. It's not wearing my PDC hat. It's lost revenue for the PDC, but that's supposed to happen. It was intended to be a temporary thing.
Yeah. So I don't think it's going to impact us as the treasurer too much.
No. It shouldn't.
Right. So
Well,
well, I mean, the gap between what you were paying Susan and other materials and what in my world, our gross profit would be, is probably not that much. It just helps cash flow. Right. All right. So I will make sure Susan sends you a letter that effective, what month is this? January, April 1? Is that what we're saying? Or May 1?
it would be effective April 1, which means we would bill for April.
So
Does that
May
make
1.
sense? There'd be a 30-day, yep, effective May 1. That works.
Right. Just we would say it would be effective. Okay, cool. I got to run. Thanks.
Very good. Thank you, Keith.
Bye.
Bye.